So I wanted to make this video on one of the biggest struggles I feel like I'm facing right now in life, and that's just the struggle of slowing down. I think sometimes in life we could get so busy, there can be so many different distractions, there could be so many things that need your attention. It seems like your to-do list is constantly growing. It seems like there's always something that you need to be doing that progresses you. You always need to be focused on self-improvement and just growing, and you never get a chance to actually stop. You never get a chance to actually reflect on yourself and see how you need to show up for you. I feel like as a content creator, as a business owner, as somebody who constantly tries to help people, I feel like I'm so constantly focused sometimes on helping everybody else, seeing how I can add value to other people's lives, seeing how I can help other people's mindsets and stuff, that I don't take care of my own as much as I used to, at least. Because I know before I started doing coaching and trying to run communities, even doing YouTube in general. Like when I was just uploading on Instagram solely, just, making 3 videos at once and editing just 3 videos, it wasn't that much work. And so I had time to still read. I had time to still invest into myself. I had time to still, journal and, actually have a relationship with myself. But I feel like the more responsibilities, the more things I added onto my list of things to do, the less time I made for myself. And I think sometimes I even see it as, I feel like taking care of myself is unproductive, as in, it doesn't progress me, or it doesn't make me money possibly, or it doesn't somehow advance me to being the person I want to be. But really it does. It just doesn't feel like as big of a reward as other things might get me. And I know I'm not the only one who struggles with that, but I feel like it's also a aspect of it being uncomfortable. As much as I preach sitting with discomfort and having courage to face yourself and stuff like that, even I still sometimes struggle today with sitting in the discomfort, actually gaining clarity on things, not finding another distraction or, going to do something else, but actually sitting with myself. Again, I feel like I've gotten so busy, or made my life so busy to the point I don't make time to actually sit with myself. And I feel like oftentimes it's not even out of the discomfort or a fear of facing myself, but more so a fear of feeling like I'm not making the most out of my day, or I'm missing out on an opportunity, or I'm wasting an opportunity, and that I should just be on go, 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 go. And so I know a lot of people probably relate to that, but you might have other distractions. It might be school for you. It might be always hanging out with friends. It might always be, some club or some sport or something where it's you're always on the go, and you feel like you don't even have time for handling certain things that you need to handle within yourself, whether it's a fear, whether it's an insecurity, whether it's, just taking time to understand your thoughts and, gain clarity in your thoughts and why you struggle in certain areas of your life. Because I feel like oftentimes we live life almost on autopilot. We live life just going through the motions, just reacting, and we feel certain things, but we don't have time to understand why we feel them. We just oh, I feel this way, so I'm gonna make this decision, I'm gonna just keep going. But sometimes we have to gain clarity on things. We have to understand why we feel certain things, why we feel certain way about certain things. And if we never gain that clarity, then we can never expect them to change. But in the long run, if they're never resolved, they'll just affect us our whole life. So let's say it's a fear of hopping in relationships. It feels like every time you're close to getting in a relationship, you run away, or something happens, or you sabotage yourself. It's we see it happening, but we don't sit with it long enough to understand why. We don't sit with it long enough to, figure out how we're going to handle that the next time. When we feel that discomfort or that urge to run, or, commit a certain pattern that we've seen within our life, we don't ever take the time to sit down and be okay, what am I going to do the next time? How can I learn from this? What's really going on? What are my thoughts? What's leading up to me making the decisions that I'm making? And again, I'm struggling with this myself because I see it in a lot of different areas, especially in my relationships, just certain habits I have. I might cut off people, I might distance myself from people, and sometimes I feel like I don't take the time to actually gain clarity on those things. And it's always because I gotta edit a video, I gotta record a video, or I gotta work on something else, I gotta help other people with something, or I'm hanging out with somebody on the weekend. It's you have to truly be intentional with yourself, me included, with making time to sit down, making time to sit in your thoughts, making time to truly gain clarity in the ways in which you're living life, or the ways in which you're moving through life, and understanding why you're even moving that way in life. Because I know for myself, a big response I give to certain questions is I don't know. And that I don't know always comes from me not having clarity. I see the decision I'm making, I'm seeing the emotion I might feel in the moment, but I never question or sit with it long enough to actually understand why it's there. And I feel like when we constantly are distracting ourselves, or we constantly have something else going on that has our attention, then we can never get that clarity that we truly need to be able to make any type of change, to actually understand ourselves and, how our past might be affecting us, what fears might be there, what insecurities might be there, what we might be trying to control. And distractions can be really anything. It could be music, it could be you playing the game, it could be you watching TV, it could be you just scrolling on your phone watching TikTok, it could be you hanging out with friends, it could be you just wandering about around the house doing random things. Like, it's so many different ways in which we can distract our mind mentally from focusing on the things in which we might need to be focused on. And so some of y'all might be saying, well, I feel like I don't do well when I just sit down intentionally. I feel like things just disappear, because I know a big thing I talk about a lot is journaling. I know some people, they're like, I sit down and it seems like all my thoughts go away. I don't even know what to talk about. And so sometimes what I like to do is like go on walks and even take notes on the notes app while I'm on walks. Sometimes I like to sit down and journal, like I was saying. Sometimes things just pop up. Sometimes if I notice a thought throughout the day, I'll write it down to talk about later in my journal. But there's different ways to go about it. But the main part is that you have to see your emotions. You have to notice the limitations you might have in your life. You have to notice the fears, or the discomforts, or the areas of your life where there might be some resistance, or you're just not sure why things are turning out the way they're turning out. And you have to truly intentionally make time to face that part of yourself. You have to make time to slow down your life and stop being in all these distractions. Start doing all these different things that keep you from being able to actually help you or show up for you in a way, because nobody can really show up for us. Nobody can really do the work with us. Like, people can tell us about ourselves. People can tell us what's wrong with us. People can tell us why we're doing certain things. We can even tell ourselves, we're feeling this or we're feeling that. But if we never take the time to actually do that internal work, if we never have to take the time to, reframe our mindsets, reframe our perspectives, let go of something, try to no longer be in control of things, understand, gain clarity in certain ways. Maybe it's having a conversation with somebody. Like, if we don't truly take the time to understand, what has led us to making the decisions that we might be making, then how can we ever expect to really grow, but also not continuously automatically sabotage ourselves in certain areas of our life? Because in some areas, it could be us holding ourselves back from success. It could be us holding ourselves back from stepping into a good relationship. It could be us holding ourselves back from, reaching our full potential or becoming that best version of ourselves. And whatever way that might look like for you, if you never take the time to gain clarity on that, if you never take the time to truly face that part of yourself, then how can you ever expect to get a different result for yourself? Because I feel like too often we're so quick to stop feeling. But nobody ever wants to feel their emotions, when half the time our emotions are what guide us to growth, and they're what guide us to clarity. Because things don't trigger us for no reason. Things trigger us for, because of a perspective, because of our past, because of, our values. And if we never take the time to gain that clarity, then how can we ever expect those things to change? But you have to realize, like, you have to actually feel your emotions. You actually have to sit in them in order to understand them, in order to not allow certain things to trigger you ever again. Because I feel like internal work is where you learn to start overcoming triggers, where you learn to start understanding why certain things even trigger you. And that's where you're going to understand, I need to change this perspective. I need to have this mindset towards it. I need to stop controlling this. I need to let go of that. But I feel like when we're always on the run, running from our pain, running from discomfort, avoiding any situation that could put us in a place where it feels like it takes us off track, or it feels like it sets us back, or it makes us have to sit with ourselves, then again, we can never expect to really change that area of our life. And I think also sometimes we just kind of get scared of what might be there, what we might discover. I've seen people sometimes say they don't even care to sit with themselves. They don't care to face their thoughts, or, you know, be alone, because they're afraid of what they might see. They're afraid of all the things they might discover. They're afraid of the pain they'll have to go through in discovering those certain parts about themselves that they might be ashamed of, or they might be embarrassed for having, or that they just may not want to be a part of them, and they just like feel this sense of negativity. Like, I understand it, but I also see like on the other side of it, like, is so necessary, because if we never truly learn to sit with ourselves, be alone with ourselves, face ourselves, then it's really just gonna hold us back in the long run of our own life for the rest of our life. Because again, we're gonna continuously sabotage, we're gonna continuously live in fear, we're gonna continuously avoid certain situations, all because we never took the time to actually slow down in life and face what was there, handle what was there, handle, you know, our fear of rejection, our fear of failure, our insecurity, or our limited belief, or, you know, the fact that we care about everybody else's opinions because we don't have a relationship with ourselves. Like, I get it, because it requires you to go on a journey of changing who you are. It requires you to go on a journey of, you know, maybe possibly isolating a little bit. And I think at times we're not willing to make change because of the sacrifices that it takes to actually make those changes. It might be cutting certain people off. It might be changing your mindset. It might be getting out of discomfort. It might be no longer settling in an area of your life that you got comfortable in settling in. And so we see these discoveries and us figuring out these certain things about ourselves as almost like threats to have to change our life, or find a new way of living our life. And I think oftentimes we're just afraid to go on that journey because we don't want to do what it takes to put in the effort to make those changes. But, you know, I love and appreciate you guys as always. Hopefully you learned a thing or two from this video and it was very, very helpful. Be sure to go cop a hoodie on willkeepitreal.com. Only a few left. Only have smalls and larges for the Build Off Mistakes design. Be sure to sign up for the Letting Go to Grow community down in the description. And like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notices. Catch you guys in the next video. Peace.